We're looking back this month at the achievements of Black Americans in this country. But we should also be looking forward in Black American History Month to a future when systemic racism and other barriers to equality for Black people come down. Black lawmakers in Albany are looking to continue making that path forward with their legislative agenda this year. That's today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, February 20th. First up, a new housing subdivision near Lake Placid was approved yesterday. The Adirondack Park Agency greenlit a 22-unit development on a forested area just outside the village. The agency also voted to allow a green group to be part of a public hearing about a firing range for military-grade cannons. Emily Russell has the details.
There's been a push in recent years to build more affordable housing in Adirondack communities like Keene, Saranac Lake, and Lake Placid. One development seen as a success is Fawn Valley, a cluster of 16 affordable townhouses in Lake Placid. They were built by the Lake Placid-based Homestead Development Corporation. They've all been sold and are occupied, and now Homestead wants to build another subdivision nearby. It would be called Fox Hill, and it would have 16 single-use homes and 3 duplexes. The APA's Devin Korn told the board at its meeting yesterday that the development of Fawn Valley informed Homestead's new proposal.
I know that they learned some things from the Fawn Valley, and that's kind of, some of that has led to this design in terms of why it looks the way it looks compared to what the other one looked like.
Rather than having all the homes in a straight line in one cluster, Fox Hill has 2 clusters of homes spread out on a street that would curve through the forest. Korn showed the APA board an aerial view of the 32-acre site.
And you can see that it's undeveloped, mostly forested, or entirely forested, and there are wetlands that I showed you on that first map that we'll look closer at along the outlet brook here and also in this area as well.
Those wetlands are part of the reason this project needed APA approval. Homestead Development has been working with the agency since 2023, adapting the subdivision to meet the APA standards and to have enough of a buffer between the homes and wetlands. Still, board member Art Lucy wondered how the APA's regulations would remain in place once the homes were built and sold.
You're asking the residents to respect the wetlands, and so if they want to make their playground kind of behind their house, we can't control that.
Korn pointed out that some of the homes would be farther away from the wetlands, so they have a bigger buffer and would be allowed to cut some trees and shrubs.
But the ones that are that close, I mean, that's part of what's there. That's part of what's approved, and that's part of what they're purchasing into.
In other words, some of the homeowners would be severely restricted by the APA permit and really wouldn't be allowed to cut more vegetation from their property. After some more discussion about wetlands and subdivisions, the board unanimously approved the Fox Hill housing project. The board also approved a measure related to an upcoming public hearing. The hearing is set to review a controversial project to test military-grade cannons in the town of Lewis. The green group Adirondack Wild applied to be a party to that hearing, but the project sponsor appealed the group's application, saying it was insufficient. But the meeting yesterday, the APA board sided with the judge and approved Adirondack Wild's involvement. The group's executive director, Dave Gibson, applauded the board's vote.
We're very gratified that the agency deferred to the administrative law judge, who we petitioned, and the law judge said, yes, you can be a party, and the agency just affirmed that.
The APA hasn't held an adjudicatory hearing in 15 years. The agency can't deny or substantially alter a permit without first sending it to a hearing. Gibson says the cannon testing proposed in Lewis is unprecedented, and he worries about how it will affect the area, which is within just a few miles of the Jay Mountain Wilderness area.
The sound impacts, obviously, are very, very important. As our impacts on wildlife and recreational users and homeowners.
The adjudicatory hearing for that project has been postponed 3 times in recent months due to legal challenges from the project sponsor. It's now set for April 22nd. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio, Raybrook.
The Adirondack Regional Airport in Saranac Lake is keeping its airline. According to the Adirondack Daily Enterprise, the Department of Transportation decided to continue a federal contract with Cape Air last week. That's after the Harrietstown Town Council voted 3-2 to support a 4-year proposal that would have replaced Cape Air with SkyWest. But the DOT has the final decision, and it cited divided community opinion as its primary reason for not replacing the airline. The DOT said it received many letters from community members asking to keep Cape Air. People said they liked the airline's local personal touch and its access to hospitals in Boston and New York City. SkyWest would have flown to Detroit or Washington, D.C. Cape Air's new contract lasts for 2 years. This year marks the 100th anniversary of what is now known as Black History Month. Black lawmakers and other lawmakers of color in Albany are using the month to highlight key priorities like more education funding, affordable housing, and progress on issues like sentencing reform. Samuel King with the New York Public News Network reports from Albany.
The Legislative Conference of the New York State Association of Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislators, otherwise known as Caucus Weekend, brings people from all over New York State to Albany for a packed weekend of networking events, parties, and policy discussions. Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes of Buffalo had a reminder for the crowd gathered at an opening night reception.
So it's more than about the party. It's more than about the party. It's about the policy for the people who we love and depend on us.
The roots of the caucus and the association date back 60 years to 1966. That's when Black and Puerto Rican lawmakers took what became known as the Midnight Walk to then Speaker Anthony Travia's office to demand more power in the legislature. They later received key leadership and committee assignments, including on the powerful Ways and Means Committee. According to a history of the caucus, members held up the state budget in 1975 until they received more benefits for Black and Latino communities. More than 50 years later, both the Speaker of the Assembly and the Senate Majority Leader are Black. Speaker Carl Hastie says it's still important to remember the legacy of those past members.
Even though we have many more legislators of color and the two legislative leaders are, of course, of color, but it's really about the importance of how the government should be doing and providing services and looking out for the communities of color. So this weekend is always going to be important.
Assemblymember Michael Solage of Long Island is chair of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Caucus. She says the timing of Caucus Weekend is no coincidence, as it falls in the heart of state budget discussions.
Policy can't be done in a silo. It has to be done collaboratively. And so when we talk about the various issues, it's important that these, people take it back and tell their neighbors that we need your help to get these policies down to the finish line. Black lawmakers used the weekend to highlight some key priorities, including a $2 billion increase in foundation aid for schools, legislation targeting foreclosure prevention and homeowner stabilization, and sentencing and parole reforms. And groups relish the chance to advocate for their priorities. Zakia Shakir Ansari is co-executive director of the Alliance for Quality Education. She says it's important to ensure lawmakers allocate enough funding to make a difference in communities.
The money has to be enough to make the change, and that's across the board, from housing to health care to education. And if we fund it right, fund it equitably, it will impact the Black and brown community. And that's when it impacts them for the better, it will absolutely impact everybody else for the better, including the state.
Dr. Shawnell Hawkins is president and CEO of the Urban League of Rochester. She says workforce development continues to be a top issue.
This is really important that there are dollars that continue to support that, but also on housing. We want to make sure that there's a clear pathway to support affordable housing. That is certainly our work. And of course, access to continue to prioritize Black and brown New Yorkers. That is always going to be our work. We want to make sure everybody has a pathway for economic success, but we still want to make sure that remains the focus.
The legislature returns to Albany next week with some of those priorities on the agenda just more than a month before the state budget is due. In Albany, I'm Samuel King for the New York Public News Network.
We have more news all the time and through the weekend on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Christopher Watts of Canton and Ben Sharon of Watertown. Have a super weekend. I'm David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio.